Pennsylvania. This is CBS 21 News This Morning.
A good Wednesday morning to you. Thank you for waking up with us. I'm Michael Gorsigner. Here's what's happening in the news today. A local firefighter dies 11 days after being hurt on the job. How fellow first responders are honoring him at the hospital overnight. Plus, a woman is killed after her car goes airborne near the Hollywood Casino. And it's been 1 year since a grand jury released recommendations to combat clergy sex abuse in Pennsylvania. We are live with what's happened since and how there is still a long way to go. But first, let's get a first check of your weather with Steve Knight. Steve, soupy out there.
Yeah, it wasn't all that long ago, like way back when, I don't know, like 2 days ago when the humidity wasn't all that high, but we have developed another case of the muggies here in central Pennsylvania, and that's going to be the case straight through the upcoming weekend. All that humidity in the atmosphere, we've got an occasional shower out there, and you can see a pretty good downpour right now in southwest Lancaster County, kind of drifting over toward Corryville and just south of Conestoga there in Manor Township in Lancaster County. So pretty good little pocket of rain there. We're going to continue to watch out for these isolated pop-up showers and storms throughout the day today. It's not going to be an all-day rain or a washout, but we will see the occasional shower, the isolated thunderstorm. Thankfully, nothing that looks severe, and it just stays muggy through the rest of the week. Temperature-wise, about where we should be for this time of year with highs in the mid to low 80s.
Well, developing overnight, dozens of people packing York Hospital to honor a firefighter who died 11 days after being hurt on the job. Assistant Fire Chief Walter Wagaman passed away last night. He was a member of the Buchanan Valley Volunteer Fire Department in Adams County. He had been in the hospital since he was thrown from a fire truck while responding to a call along Carlisle Pike August 2nd. Friends, family, and fellow first responders paying their respects with an honor walk overnight. New this morning, one woman is dead after a crash near the entrance of Hollywood Casino in Dauphin County. State police say 24-year-old Ashley Jennings was traveling along Fox Run Road yesterday afternoon when she missed a turn and the car went airborne. The car hit a tree and landed on its roof. We're told Jennings was not wearing a seatbelt. Well, 1 year ago today, Attorney General Josh Shapiro published the findings of a 2-year grand jury investigation into child sex abuse by Catholic priests in 6 Pennsylvania dioceses. CBS 21's Joe Ducey live outside the state capitol. And Joe, this sparked a massive conversation about victims' rights and how to make sure something like this could never happen again.
Yeah, Mike, that's right. Good morning. The investigation captured widespread sexual abuse and an institutional cover-up across virtually the entire state. The report identified 301 alleged predator priests who sexually abused children while actively serving in ministry. More than 1,000 child victims were identified in the graphic and disturbing report, which made it clear in many cases victims were brushed aside by church leaders who preferred to protect the abusers. There are 4 key recommendations made in the report. They include eliminating the criminal statute of limitations for sexually abusing children, creating a 2-year civil window for child sex abuse victims who couldn't file suits in the past, clarifying penalties for failing to report child abuse, and last, prohibiting non-disclosure agreements regarding cooperation with law enforcement.
So these recommendations would help protect not only those victims, those survivors in the past, but it's also there to help protect those potential victims in the future as well.
Advocates we spoke with say abuse and cover-up within organizations, not just the church, is a major problem, and there's still a lot of work to be done from a legislative standpoint to make sure something like this never happens again. Coming up next half hour, we'll take a closer look on what lawmakers have been working on to not only deliver justice to the victims, but again, to make sure something like this and this widespread cover-up never happens again here in Pennsylvania. For now, reporting live outside the state capitol, Joe Ducey, CBS 21 News.
New developments overnight surrounding the man accused of opening fire and killing 51 people at a New Zealand mosque earlier this year. New Zealand officials now coming forward admitting they made a big mistake by allowing the alleged Christchurch gunman to send a 6-page handwritten letter that ended up on the website 4chan, which has become a notorious place for white supremacists to post their views. Alleged killers from all around the world, including El Paso, cite the Christchurch shooter as an inspiration. In it, the letter warns that a, quote, great conflict is coming.
New developments in the fallout of the Jeffrey Epstein apparent suicide. Attorney General William Barr has ordered a shakeup at the federal prison in New York, where the suspected sex trafficker died over the weekend. The warden has been temporarily reassigned and 2 guards have been placed on administrative leave. Authorities want to know how Epstein was able to take his own life and why he was taken off suicide watch 12 days earlier.
We'll get to the bottom of what happened, and there will be accountability.
Wants to review video cameras from the special housing unit where Epstein was held. A suicide reconstructions team has also been sent to the scene. Both Congress and the president are calling for gun reform legislation a little more than a week after the Dayton mass shootings and the one in El Paso, Texas. House Democrats and gun control advocates gathered on Capitol Hill yesterday to urge the Senate to take up legislation the House passed in February. It expands background checks for private firearm purchases at gun shows and online.
Is it the solution to all this violence? It is not. But 95% of Americans support it because they believe it is a significant and important step.
This weekend, gun control advocates will hold rallies in cities throughout the country to demand congressional action on guns.
Pennsylvania Steel raised the skyscrapers that built our cities. And by the way, steel.
President Trump picking the Keystone State to highlight his support for manufacturing in an effort to hold support in a region that helped him win the White House in 2016. The president visited Shell's soon-to-be-completed petrochemicals complex in Beaver County yesterday and even took credit for the development. That's despite the fact that Shell announced its plans to build the complex back in 2012 when President Obama was in office.
This would have never happened without me and us. This would have never happened. So I'm with you. I'm with you. Remember that.
The plan is part of a growing effort to capitalize on Western PA's natural gas deposits by turning gas into plastics, something President Trump says is completely fine. Well, a push to keep climate change regulations, the lawsuit several states are filing, and why they say the EPA does not have the best interests of the public. Plus, lawmakers look to make changes in the wake of a deadly daycare fire. The legislation one state senator is now proposing. Steve?
Well, it's a warm, muggy start. Temperatures in the 70s already. I'll let you know what our next best chance is to see a few thunderstorms with my first morning forecast. Well, a couple of showers have popped up here this morning. Had a few more overnight last night. It's just really warm, muggy. You get all of this humidity in the atmosphere. We're just going to get these occasional showers. Much of what we're seeing right now is in Lancaster County, south of the city, kind of along 222 over toward the Corryville area. Pretty good downpour there to start the day. This stalled frontal boundary is going to give us the occasional shower, the occasional pop-up storm, and it is going to stay muggy for us through the end of the week. How much AC do you need today? Well, we're cranking it again. Highs are only in the mid-80s, but with all this humidity, it's just going to feel quite oppressive during the afternoon hours. We'll keep that eye out for the pop-up shower or thunderstorm.
Well, a hiccup to let our Hershey commuters know about this morning. An accident has closed West Chocolate Avenue right now, and a vehicle is on fire there. Detours are set up in place as West Chocolate Ave is closed between Hershey Park Drive and University Drive. So be sure to heed those detours. Move on over for emergency officials. Allow them plenty of space. Other than that, major roadways in our area, the rest of 422 is doing A-OK. No issues for us right now on the Capitol Beltway. This traffic report is brought to you by L.B. Smith Ford, Central PA's big Ford store.
Well, a new lawsuit claims the Diocese of Altoona Johnstown tried to cover up sexual assault allegations against a former Penn State University professor. According to the suit, Leonard Riforgato sexually assaulted 2 children years after admitting he molested children at a school in New York. Riforgato was transferred from New York to a church in State College. He also taught at Penn State's Shenango Valley campus for over 27 years and focused on youth activities.
Both boys were groomed extensively. They bonded with Father Lenny. They trusted Father Lenny.
Now, Penn State has not been named in the lawsuit. Father Lenny died in 1999. Pennsylvania's Department of Human Services says it does not check smoke detectors in state-licensed home daycare facilities. The announcement coming in response to a fatal daycare fire in Erie. It claimed the life of 5 children Sunday morning. Fire officials say there were not enough working smoke detectors inside of the facility. Now, one state senator says he's looking to introduce a bill that would require DHS to inspect smoke detectors. Harrisburg's fire chief says it's important state legislators step in and try and pass laws to prevent this kind of tragedy from happening. Brian Ennerline says it should be a standard to have all homes equipped with a sprinkler system and smoke alarms on every floor.
We need to get by that. We need to take this the deaths of these 4 kids in his daycare center. We need to look at that and say, we in Pennsylvania are doing a horrible job at protecting our citizens. Our main goal as government should be to protect those citizens' lives.
According to Chief Enterline, Pennsylvania has the 3rd highest rate of fire-related deaths in the entire country. Well, some states are allowing kids to take mental health days. What local experts say are the pros and cons of this new trend and the advice they're offering to parents. Well, some people in Pennsylvania are wondering if the state should allow students to take mental health days. Both Oregon and Utah have passed legislation that allows the practice. In Oregon, states can take 5 mental health days in a 3-month period. Local experts tell us there are pros and cons.
One of my fears initially would be the students that would take advantage of this, potentially manipulating it for the reasons that are not what they are initially intended for.
Experts say the most important thing is that parents communicate with their kids and find out what's happening at school. This can help parents keep an eye out for signs of anxiety and depression, such as the shift in behavior and increased isolation. Well, Governor Tom Wolf is looking to change Pennsylvania's charter school law. Yesterday, the governor announced an executive action that would overhaul regulations. He says the current law is unfair because the schools and companies that manage these schools are not held to the same ethical and transparency standards as those traditional public schools. His executive action aims to change that by making charter schools follow the same rules as public schools and holding them accountable for taxpayers.
These changes will do a number of things. First, strengthen the accountability and transparency of charter and cyber charter schools. They'll control costs to taxpayers. And third, they'll better serve students across the education program.
The governor is also proposing a charter school reform legislation.
And now, CBS 21 News First Warning Weather with meteorologist Steve Knight.
Well, waking up to some pesky cloud cover and yes, a little bit of patchy fog at a few spots. We're down to less than 2 miles of visibility right now in Lancaster. Same thing in Chambersburg. So just watch for it here on your travels this morning. We've had a couple of spot sprinkles pop up this morning, but we've also got some steadier showers right now over into Lancaster County. Even some pretty good showers coming down around Corryville once you get south of Lancaster City along 222 and then up along 272, 322 up toward Ephrata and over toward the Carnarvon area. We're seeing some steadier rain there. Most spots are dry this morning, but it is quite muggy, and that's going to be the case here rest of the week, really. And as we round out the work week, this frontal boundary that slid through here yesterday stalls out, becomes a stationary front. We're going to see the occasional shower, thunderstorm right along this front, and it's going to stay quite humid for us here for the next several days. So got to keep those shower chances, pop-up thunderstorm chances in your forecast here for the remainder of the work week. Staying muggy. Weekend, at best right now, I think maybe by Sunday afternoon we could see an isolated storm pop up, but it's going to be a hot weekend. I think by Sunday especially, we're going to get back into the low 90s with some fairly high humidity. So our future radar today, here we are 4 o'clock this afternoon. No, not widespread. So if you have evening plans tonight, good chance you get them in. We just have to dodge that pop-up shower or storm. Start things out rather quiet tomorrow. It stays muggy though. And then during the afternoon, thanks to this stalled out frontal boundary, we'll watch out for a pop-up shower, isolated storm to be back in that forecast for you second half of the day tomorrow. Humidity riding pretty high here this week. You can see it on the muggy meter up at that very humid level. And then look what happens by the time we get to Sunday. We start to nudge things up almost toward that oppressive level. And you factor in the fact that the temperature is going to be in the low 90s, that high humidity, probably feeling more like mid 90s by the time Sunday rolls around. So it's going to be a reminder this weekend that it is indeed still summer after that fall-like weekend we had this past weekend. Here are your future dew points. Remember, this is the measure of moisture in the atmosphere. Anytime you start to see that dew point number get to around 70, that's when you know that humidity's riding high, and I think we'll be there by later on today. So it's a muggy one today. Scattered showers, an isolated thunderstorm, 84, your high temperature. We quiet things down overnight tonight after a leftover evening shower, and here's the rest of your first warning 7-day forecast. So it's just an unsettled pattern. We'll keep the isolated storm chances in your forecast. Well, tomorrow and Friday, thankfully, nothing that looks severe, and then it is going to be a hot, humid weekend. Upper 80s on Saturday, highs back into the low 90s by Sunday.
All right, thank you very much, Steve. Well, today's number of the day looks at what voters think of our current political system. 53% say that while they believe our country is doing okay, the political system is in crisis. The ScottRasmussen.com national survey also finds this was a common theme across all party lines. A majority of Republicans, Democrats, and independent voters all agreed that our political system is facing a major dilemma. Well, eliminating disease is a group effort. The role herd immunity plays when it comes to eradicating illnesses and how choosing to not follow health protocols can put others at risk.
Things are quiet moving around the capital city this morning. You won't see any problems if you're going to be hopping onto the Beltway right now, coming up 83 towards the York Split, making your way across the Susquehanna through the Eisenhower interchange. That's moving smoothly. No issues for us on 81 as it wraps around the Beltway, making its way towards the West Shore. River routes are doing just fine. 11 and 15, 22, 322, moving dandily along. Nothing to let you know about right now on those intercity Harrisburg roads. This traffic report is brought to you by L.B. Smith Ford, Central PA's big Ford store.
Well, many states are suing the EPA for its decision to roll back restrictions on coal-burning plants. A coalition of 22 states and some cities filed the federal lawsuit saying the agency's decision will limit states' abilities to choose sources of energy with lower greenhouse gas emissions. The suit also claims the change disregards the Federal Clean Air Act.
The EPA and the Trump administration are backsliding once again, bending over backwards for special interests at the expense of the public's interest.
But the EPA says the rule will still give states regulatory certainty. It's designed to make good on Trump's campaign promise to revive the country's coal industry. Well, Pennsylvania officials say some mosquitoes have tested positive for West Nile virus in Adams County. The Department of Environmental Protection tested insects found in Conewago Township. Now, county officials are asking people to help eliminate mosquitoes by making sure you don't have any stagnant water outside. West Nile can be transmitted to people and can cause an inflammation of the brain. As of now, there have been no confirmed human cases in Adams County. In Lancaster County, 14 dogs have been rescued from a home. The SPCA saying on Monday, 11 dogs, including 2 puppies, were found living in unsanitary conditions at a home in Elizabethtown. The home also had extreme high levels of ammonia. A few other dogs were also found at a neighboring property. The animals are now being evaluated and will be made available for adoption in the coming days. As of now, no charges have been filed. And officials are warning about a water toxin that can be harmful to humans and to pets. It's called blue-green algae and can be found in lakes and ponds. Swallowing it can cause nausea and stomach aches for both humans and animals. Last week, a woman in North Carolina lost her 3 dogs to algae poisoning after they went swimming in a pond. Experts are now reminding folks to never drink lake water as it can be hard to see the algae.
When people think of really harmful algae, they think of a big bluish green mass on the water. That's not something you're seeing on here. We have algae in the water, but you're not seeing any green masses here along the lake.
Now, blue-green algae is fueled in part by runoff from fertilizers and sewage systems. Well, medical professionals are focused on finding cures and fully eliminating deadly diseases. This year, 19 years after eliminating the measles from the United States, a handful of states saw major outbreaks. In this week's Sinclair Cares, Kelly Ozair looks at the role herd immunity can play in the elimination of these diseases.
Sinclair Cares is sponsored by UPMC Pinnacle.
When I say herd, do you think of this? Or maybe even this. We usually think of a group of animals that take care of one another. But did you know that you and I are a part of a herd, one that can eliminate diseases? The concept, according to the National Institute of Health and the CDC, is called herd immunity.
So herd immunity is this idea that you have enough people in a community who are immune to a disease that they basically act like a firewall.
In 2000, the measles was eliminated from the U.S. thanks to herd immunity. And experts say not every person needs a vaccination for the herd's protection to work.
We talk about needing at least 93 to 95% immune to the disease in order to keep it from spreading.
But that immunization percentage has dropped in some areas, allowing outbreaks in New York, California, Washington, and Florida. That makes it especially dangerous for some kids, including 6-year-old Kai Bonneau, who has cancer and because of that cannot get vaccinated.
It was super scary.
Earlier this year, when a measles outbreak popped up in his town, his mom, Jessica Fichtel, says she was on high alert because for Kai, getting the measles is life or death.
It was like war, honestly. We kept Kai home.
a lot.
For good reason. Not enough of the human herd was immune where Kai lived. Here's how it works. According to NIH, if 0% of the population is vaccinated and a disease like the measles is brought into the community, most will get the disease. If 75% of the community is vaccinated, most would be protected. And if that critical 95% immunization is reached, almost no one will get the disease.
When enough people are immune to a disease, typically through vaccination, that you just don't see it on a typical day.
And when the human herd is protected, lives are saved. For Sinclair Cares, I'm Kelly Ozair.
Well, the names of those killed in apparent murder-suicide have been released. Why authorities believe the man who pulled the trigger in Dauphin County had been planning to do so. Plus, a weight is lifted off of the shoulders in police in Hershey, why they say a ride-sharing scare was just a misunderstanding.
You're watching CBS 21 News this morning.
And I'm here, finally, to announce the results of a 2-year grand jury investigation into widespread sexual abuse of children within the Catholic Church and the systematic cover-up by senior church officials in Pennsylvania and at the Vatican.
It's been 1 year since Pennsylvania's Attorney General released what he called the most comprehensive report on child sex abuse within the church ever produced in our country. Now, 12 months later, lawmakers are still trying to find a way to make sure something like this never happens again. CBS 21's Joe Ducey live outside the state capitol with how much progress is being made and what still needs to be done. Joe, good morning.
Yeah, Mike, good morning. The report identifies 301 alleged pedophile priests who abuse children in churches across the state. In 6 dioceses across the state, more than 1,000 child victims were identified in the graphic and disturbing report, which details a systematic cover-up spanning decades by senior church leaders in Pennsylvania and at the Vatican. 4 recommendations were made in the report earlier this year. House lawmakers introduced legislation that would help implement those recommendations. 2 of the bills were introduced by Representative Mark Rossi. One of the bills would do away with the criminal statute of limitations and allow victims to file criminal complaints at any time and give victims until the age of 55 to file criminal lawsuits. The other bill would create a 2-year civil window for victims who couldn't file suits in the past, but the bill's controversial because it would actually change the state's constitution, a process victim advocates say would take at least 2 years.
I would encourage those that may be frustrated with how long it's taken, that to remember that this is a permanent change, right? This is changing our laws. We do want to make sure that it's done right.
2 other bills, one that strengthens penalties for mandated reporters who fail to report abuse, another that forbids non-disclosure agreements when it comes to victims speaking with law enforcement, has also been introduced in the House. But so far, no legislation has actually been signed yet in Pennsylvania that would implement those recommendations. For now, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Joe, thank you very much. Well, the Child Victims Act takes effect in New York today. The groundbreaking new law allows sexual abuse victims previously time barred by a statute of limitations a 1-year window to file a civil lawsuit against their alleged perpetrators and the institutions.
So that I started writing this story, documenting it last year, never dreaming that this day would come where I'd be able to file a suit. I never ever thought that this bill would pass. I have to thank all the abuse survivors that fought so hard to get this bill passed.
Now hear more from this victim who will be one of many filing lawsuits. That story on CBS this morning right after we're done here at 7 a.m. And be sure to stick with CBS 21 later today as we continue to mark the 1-year anniversary since the grand jury report into clergy sex abuse in Pennsylvania was released. Full team coverage tonight on CBS 21 News at 5. Steve, let's take a first check of that weather.
Yeah, you know, it's cloudy out there this morning and it's muggy. It's going to stay pretty steamy for us here throughout the rest of the week and even into the weekend. Most of us are waking up dry. You notice we've got some pretty decent showers, though, coming down right now in Lancaster County, specifically right around Quarryville, 222, south of downtown Lancaster, then also up toward Carnarvon. You can see that northeast corner of Lancaster up toward Akron, Ephrata, also getting a few showers. We'll look for a pop-up shower, even an isolated storm. Later on this afternoon, a lot of the day will be dry, but it is going to stay quite muggy. So few showers around, an isolated thunderstorm, and that's going to be the case through the end of the week. From a temperature standpoint, about where we should be for this time of year, with highs in the mid to low 80s.
Well, first responders in our region are paying their final respects to a fallen comrade. Overnight, nearly 70 people lined up in the halls of York Hospital to stage an honor walk for Walter Wagaman. He died last night, 11 days after being thrown from a fire truck while responding to a crash in Adams County. Wagaman was the assistant chief of the Buchanan Valley Fire Department. Today, a man convicted of charges stemming from a fatal DUI crash is set to be sentenced. Tyler Dormo will learn his fate this morning at the Lebanon County Courthouse. He hit and killed Karen Graham with his vehicle in March of 2018. He was drunk with a BAC of .22. Prosecutors in York County no longer seeking the death penalty against a New York man charged in the beating death of his ex-girlfriend. The York Daily Record is reporting prosecutors filed court documents last month saying 20-year-old Edia Lawrence provided information that makes a capital punishment sentence inappropriate. Lawrence allegedly killed Anashantia Johnson in Mount Wolf in March of 2017. Dauphin County officials are calling a murder-suicide premeditated. The district attorney says 50-year-old Julian Kern met his estranged wife, 40-year-old Kelly Kern, at a movie theater Monday night where he shot her and then himself. It happened outside the Regal Cinemas in Susquehanna Township. The DA saying the man had indicated on social media that he was, quote, going to go out on his own terms.
Based on the investigation, determined that there is no danger to the public, that this was a murder-suicide. And that's based on the evidence at the scene as well as posts from the person that pulled the trigger.
The movie theater was open at the time, but no one else was hurt. Police in Dauphin County no longer searching for a so-called Lyft driver impersonator. Instead, they say it was all a big misunderstanding. Derry Township police were on the lookout for a white Jeep Grand Cherokee after it was reported the driver tried to pick up a couple before they realized it wasn't the right vehicle. However, after reaching out to police himself, it was determined he is actually an Uber driver and could prove that the person who requested the Lyft also requested a ride from Uber. Police say the couple either miscommunicated that they both made requests or they did so on purpose in hopes that the service would arrive quicker than the other. Either way, Derry Township police say there was no criminal violation from that Uber driver. Police in Cumberland County are investigating medication and beauty products that apparently were tampered with before being returned and restocked on store shelves. District Attorney Skip Ebert says forensic experts are working to identify substances that were seized after authorities searched a home in Mechanicsburg. They haven't named the suspect, but they say they purchased things from a store in Hamden and Silver Spring Townships and then made the returns. There haven't been any reports of anyone getting sick. Well, a shooting at 2 immigration buildings is under investigation. Why authorities believe the incident wasn't a random act and why some are pointing the finger at the Trump administration. Plus, good news from the Pennsylvania Turnpike, why a federal court is taking the state's agency's side amidst a lawsuit from truck drivers. Steve?
Well, we're already dealing with the humidity, but are the temperatures actually going to kind of go up from here? Is it going to get hotter for us? Weather Magic 8 Ball seems to think so. I'll have details for you on when we can expect it to get back into the 90s with my first warning forecast.
You're watching CBS 21 News this morning.
Well, a real muggy start. Most of us, though, are dry, at least for now. We do have a pretty good shower going on in Lancaster County. Actually, a couple of showers. You can see one right now directly over Quarryville. Good amount of rain coming down there. And also in the northeast corner of Lancaster County near Carnarvon. Showers there up near the PA Turnpike. Now, in terms of the heat, not all that bad here through midweek, despite the fact that it's muggy. But look what happens over the weekend. Upper 80s on Saturday, then we're back into the low 90s on Sunday. So yeah, highs today only in the mid 80s, but thanks to that humidity, you're going to need to crank that AC today. It stays very muggy, not a washout, but the occasional pop-up shower and thunderstorm with a high of 84.
A couple of accidents to let you know about this morning. The first, it's going to actually create the most slow goes in Hershey. West Chocolate Avenue closed right now. It's been closed for about an hour due to an accident there, and it's closed between Hershey Park Drive and University Drive. A detour is in place, but we want to also divert your attention right now to Lancaster, where we're following two accidents. The first at Route 30 westbound at the New Holland Pike. Be on the lookout for that. The second is at Hartman Station Road near the Old Philadelphia Pike, just outside of Bird in Hand. So a heads up, be careful as you're commuting out there this morning, and be sure to give emergency officials plenty of room. This traffic report is brought to you by the all-new Turner Chevrolet in Harrisburg.
All right, thank you very much, Ashley. With the FBI is investigating a shooting incident at two immigration and custom enforcement offices in Texas. And as John Lawrence reports, authorities say the offices were targeted.
Shots fired at two buildings associated with Immigration and Customs Enforcement early Tuesday. No one was injured, but there were people inside at least one of the offices under fire.
Had the bullets gone 2 inches in another direction, we could be here today talking about the murder of a federal official.
The FBI is processing the crime scene and looking at surveillance footage. Officials believe the suspects specifically knew which offices ICE is using.
Any attempt at any violence or illegal activity against a federal official, the FBI will open a federal case, and we will vigorously go after those that are responsible.
This incident comes days after immigration officials detained nearly 700 undocumented immigrants in Mississippi.
Last week's massive ICE raid will have an enormous long-term effect on the state of Mississippi.
And one day after the Trump administration unveiled a regulation that makes it tougher for legal immigrants to get green cards if they received government benefits.
Self-sufficiency is a central part of America's proud heritage, and we proudly stand behind that tradition.
Federal authorities have not drawn a link to either of these incidents to Tuesday's shooting, but do say political discourse could lead to more attacks. John Lawrence, CBS 21 News This Morning.
In state news now, a federal appeals court has ruled the Pennsylvania Turnpike's tolls don't violate the rights of drivers who travel between states. The court made the ruling yesterday, upholding a lower court's dismissal of a lawsuit against the agency. The suit was filed by a coalition of truckers and other motorists. Judges say the Turnpike is allowed to use tolls to pay other costs because it was authorized by Congress. Pennsylvania uses the toll income to maintain its highway and transit system. Well, living in poverty can have an additional setback for female students. The struggles of period poverty and what people in our area are trying to do to combat the phenomenon. Well, that song can only mean one thing. We're continuing our Before the Bell coverage, and this morning we're taking a closer look at an issue known as period poverty. And today's Before the Bell, CBS 21's Jesse McDonough shows us how it's affecting young women in the Harrisburg and Stilton school districts.
92% of the students in the Stilton High-Spire School District live at or below the poverty line, which presents a difficult set of challenges, especially for young women who can't afford feminine hygiene products.
We do try and have products available in the nurse's office. Obviously can't provide consistently for every female student all the time. But it does happen, not just because of the feminine hygiene products, but maybe because they might not have a change of clothes.
1 in 5 young women in America have skipped school because they could not afford feminine hygiene products, which can be detrimental to their education.
It's easy for parents to say, well, you can miss a day every 2 weeks of school. But at the end of the year, that ends up being 20 days of school, which equates to 4 full weeks of school that they miss.
Food stamps do not cover feminine hygiene products, which is one of the reasons Kia Hanser from the nonprofit Concerned About the Children of Harrisburg is collecting those items for students.
Bullying can take many different forms, one of which is a child's presentation. So as a result of these things, we thought, well, maybe if we attempted to collect hygiene items on behalf of students that may not be able to afford them, that we would, ultimately help in reducing bullying.
As a mother of 2 young ladies herself, Hansard says her heart goes out to female students who are put in this awkward situation every month.
It's embarrassing, especially if, accidents happen while in school. So our group is trying to do whatever it is that we can do to assist with ensuring that our students are happy and healthy, in addition to being in school on a consistent basis.
For CBS 21, I'm Jessie McDonough.
Now, if you would like to donate feminine hygiene products to students in the Harrisburg or Steelton High Spire School District, we will include contact information on our website, cbs21.com. That's also where you can find the rest of our Before the Bell stories. It's a 2-week initiative we're taking here at CBS 21, all in an effort to get you and your children, no matter how reluctant they may be, ready for the new school year. Look for the stories here on CBS 21 News this morning and on CBS 21 News at 5:30.
And now, CBS 21 News First Warning Weather with meteorologist Steve Knight.
Well, it's a muggy start to the day. It's not widespread, but we have seen a little bit of patchy fog kind of develop here as we make our way around daybreak. You notice Chambersburg, less than 2 miles of visibility, just at 2 miles currently in Lancaster. So just be aware of it on your travels here this morning. Could run into some of that patchy fog. Most of us are dry, dealing with the clouds. It's extremely muggy. Focus in on a couple of showers coming down right now. Corryville and Lancaster County getting a quick little downpour there. Same thing in and around Carnarvon. Some rain that's coming down in the northeast corner of Lancaster County up toward the PA Turnpike up near Ephrata and Akron. They're dealing with some rain showers there. So our next weather maker is this frontal boundary that came through yesterday. That brought back the clouds. It brought back the shower chances. And now it's just going to kind of stall out and become stationary for us. And we're going to see the occasional showers, even the isolated thunderstorm right along this frontal boundary throughout the end of the week. And it's going to stay pretty muggy for us. So another one of those days where, good chance to get in a lot of the outdoor plans. I know fall practices, speaking of back to school, fall practices have officially started this week, and you're going to be able to get in those practices. We're just dodging the occasional shower or isolated storm, and it stays muggy. Very humid week, and then a downright hot weekend, especially by Sunday. I think by Sunday afternoon, we're back into the low 90s. So our future radar picks up on these spot showers that want to pop up late this afternoon, this evening. Same deal for tomorrow. I think we start out mainly dry, and then we'll watch out for a spotty shower, isolated storm during the second half of the day. The Muggy Meter tells the story. It is going to stay quite humid, and you notice by Sunday, you're going to start to see that humidity get nearly oppressive once again. Remember that dew point? That's the measure of moisture in the atmosphere, and anytime they start to get around 70, which is our future dew points, by later on today, a dew point near 70, that's some pretty muggy air, and that's what we're going to deal with through the rest of the week and even into the weekend. So scattered showers, isolated storm today, mid-80s. Tonight, we're going to be fairly quiet overnight. An evening shower left over, 68, your overnight low. Here's the rest of your first warning 7-day forecast. So temperature-wise, not too bad to end the work week with those isolated storm chances. Then heating up this weekend, upper 80s on Saturday, and then hot, humid on Sunday with an isolated storm as we head back into the low 90s.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Knight. Now we want to take a moment to honor our hometown heroes. Here's CBS 21's Joel D. Smith with this week's military salutes.
CBS 21 News presents Military Salutes, sponsored by Central Penn College and Window Nation.
This week on CBS 21 Salutes, we're honoring Technical Sergeant Norman E. Smith. He spent 20 years in the U.S. Air Force, serving in many domestic locations, but also abroad in places like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Germany, and the UK. And check this out, 4 generations of the O'Day family serving our country. This was sent in by Francis O'Day. His family is represented here by a grandfather, father, son, and daughter-in-law, plus 2 grandsons. They served in the Navy, Marines, and PA National Guard in places like the Persian Gulf, also in the Vietnam War, and even World War II. What a family. If you'd like to honor a friend or family member, head over to CBS21.com and search for CBS 21 Salutes, or go to our Facebook page. For CBS 21 Salutes, I'm Joel D. Smith.
Well, POTUS making a visit to the Keystone State, with the president touted while touring the construction site of Cracker Plant. Plus this.
I'm Tony DeCopo. Coming up, New York State's new law gives people 1 year to sue alleged abusers from long ago, while one lawyer expects a tsunami of cases. That's coming up on CBS this morning.
Taking a final check of our top stories today, marking the 1-year anniversary of the release of Pennsylvania's grand jury report into clergy sex abuse. The report identified 301 priests who were accused of sexually abusing children while actively serving in churches. It also brought to light issues of churches covering up the allegations and the need to reform statute of limitation laws. Attorney General William Barr shaking up the staff at the New York prison where Jeffrey Epstein was serving time. Barr was ordered by the warden to temporarily reassign 2 guards, and they've been placed on administrative leave. The alleged sex trafficker died of apparent suicide over the weekend, shortly after being taken off suicide watch. Newly released surveillance video laying out the timeline of the mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio. The gunman, Connor Betts, killed 9 people last week, including his sister. Police say he knew his sister was at the bar. They are now trying to figure out if he specifically targeted her. President Trump back at his golf club in New Jersey after making a visit to the Keystone State. The president touring the construction site of a cracker plant in Beaver County yesterday. During his visit, he touted his support for natural gas.
One of the single biggest construction projects in the nation, and it made it possible and was possible by clean, affordable, all-American natural gas.
The Shell cracker plant in Monaco will be used to turn gas into plastics. 22 states are suing the EPA for rolling back on restrictions on coal-burning power plants. According to a federal lawsuit filed this week, the group thinks the agency's decision will reduce efforts to combat greenhouse gases and disregard the Federal Clean Air Act. But the EPA says it disagrees with the claim that the courts will uphold the rule.
Well, most of us are dry, but it's cloudy, it's muggy, it's murky out there this morning. We do have a pretty good shower that's coming down right now in Lancaster County. You can see we've got one right around the Quarryville area, then also drifting over into Berks County up near Carnarvon and along the PA Turnpike. If you do have some eastbound travel plans on the Turnpike, maybe heading over toward Chester County, watch out for some downpours there. Now, we'll get some breaks in the action throughout the day today. Then we see that isolated shower pop-up storm. And despite the fact only in the mid-80s today, which is where we should be, it's going to be so humid, you're going to need to crank that AC once again. The humidity is back, folks, and it's not going anywhere straight through the entire weekend. We're going to heat things up over the weekend. Look at Sunday. I think by Sunday we're back into the low 90s, Ashley.
Some accidents that could slow down your morning commute this morning. The first on West Chocolate Avenue, completely closed from Hershey Park Drive to University Drive due to an accident. So a heads up there, look out for detours. The second is on the Beltway right now, Route 15 northbound at 581. There is a ramp closed there, so just a heads up that could add a couple of extra minutes to your morning commute. This traffic report is brought to you by the all-new Turner Chevrolet in Harrisburg.
And thank you for joining us here on CBS 21 News this morning. CBS This Morning coming up next. Here's a live look into Studio 57. Have yourself a grandiose hump day.